veins and opened old wounds, and I would not do that. I'm early into my 60s now, and no one remains but me. While I feel strange for doing this, I'm glad I finally got to be able to tell this without anyone being bothered. As you have probably already guessed, life was confusing and complicated for me when I was growing up. And while I cared deeply for those in my family, I have to admit to a peculiar sense of relief that I felt when I laid to rest the last remaining member of my family besides myself. I do not count my wife among those because she has known the secret for quite a while now and has sworn to keep silent until I no longer do. I guess she can do as she is. My wife and I were never able to have children, so I never had the chance to do as my father did for me, and that is a regret I have. But when I was young, I wondered a lot if my father had been taken fishing and hunting by his father, the way that my father took me. I still don't know if they ever shared times like that, but I hope that they did. And I wouldn't take anything for the moments I shared with my father in the outdoors. For my 13th birthday, I was given a new bicycle, a big blue Schwinn Typhoon that could bore a hole in the wind. And once I had that, it never steered me wrong in any way. So some of my thoughts were toward trusting him in this and staying away. But what upset my father might be nothing to me, and I really wanted to know this man while I had the chance. So after eating my breakfast and taking out the garbage,
Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
I mounted my bike and I headed for his house. Maybe it was his usual habit when he wasn't helping to rebuild kitchens, or maybe he was anxious to meet me because I was him. But either way, he was sitting on his porch when I rode into the yard. 13, huh? So you know about boys and girls. Boys your age are always sniffing around girls, trying to hold hands with them and sneak off behind a building somewhere to steal a kiss. But guess what? Grown men and women are the same way. A lot of men like to do that sort of thing so much that they leave the family they already have just to try to have a little fun. Well, that's what your daddy always thought I had done, no matter how many times I told him he was wrong. I told him exactly where I had been and what I had been doing, and he thought that I was a liar. I understand him being sore. What I did put him and his mother in a hard way for a long time, but I never did what your daddy believes I did. I was on his half. I never believed in having a wandering eye, and I thought the world of your grandmother and your father. But there came a time I just had to go and clear my head. I was a good man, but I suppose I was a selfish one too. But when you think only of yourself, that's being selfish. One day, I walked out the door and then just kept walking. I was raised more outdoors than in. Most of us in that part of the country were back then. Being out in the wilds, the woods and swamps and bayous wasn't just natural to me. It was where I felt at home and at peace. Because I was providing for your grandmother and your father, I had moved us all into town where I could stay. That was before we all moved here. I thought that sort of way. Like when you run up on an animal that's been dead for a while, long enough dead that most of the bitter smell's washed away and only that sweet rot remains. Since I didn't know or care where I was and I had no agenda, I started following that smell. Just out of curiosity, I suppose. Deeper and deeper into those unfamiliar woods I went. And in the back of my mind, I guess I was aware of all the things that could be in there. After all, I had spent most of my life in those places. I knew there could be anything from wild hogs to the snakes that will bite you. And if there happened to be any water around there, there could be a gator or two lying real still. Quiet there. Quiet like I had never experienced, as if sound wasn't permitted to enter that valley. It was a kind of quiet that made you feel all cold inside. You know, the nervous type cold like you feel when you walk inside a funeral home. As much as I had needed to get away from everybody and everything, I was ready to leave that sorrowful place. But then I saw what I couldn't. Those big arms were swinging slow as it walked, a bit bent over at the waist like they were helping to push him forward, like dragging an oar through the water, pushing a boat along. That's what it looked like to me. It slid into the shadows and disappeared, leaving me to wonder if what I had seen had been real. I sat there for a while pondering over what I had watched until it dawned on me that I needed to start finding my way back. I wasn't really sure I knew the way because I hadn't been paying attention as I had been walking. I stood up and took a last look around and then turned to go back toward home. And when I turned around, that son of a bitch was standing there looking at me. He had made it all the way up from where it had been off of that valley again. I wanted to be there with that thing. I wanted to watch it. I wanted it to invite me to follow it again. Something in that lonesome valley called to me. And as much as I knew I was doing wrong to my family, I didn't have a choice but to go. I could have left a note of some kind, but I didn't know how to tell the truth, and I'd go and get myself a drink of water. I was awfully parched by then. And as soon as I started to stir, the thing I had seen on the first trip there raised itself from the ground, and it stared at me. I had been there all afternoon and had never seen it down there. I'm not claiming that it had magic or anything, but I am saying that it knew how to be so still that it could blend into those shadows and be dang near invisible. I sat real still and I watched as it took a step out into the light, and then I watched as a dozen or more of those things started to stand up. They had been watching me all that time, and I never saw one of them in death. Anyone would have been, but I didn't think I was in any immediate danger. You can read a man by looking into his eyes, and I was doing that with this thing. I saw curiosity in its eyes, not a threat. I sat there holding my sack full of peaches and crackers, and it just stood there studying me. I don't know for how long, but it seemed a while, and it started down into the valley. I felt more like that thing had directed me to that hole because it felt I would be safe there while they were gone. It turned out that they were going to hunt all night for things to eat, and I realized that the next morning when I saw them come back, and a couple of them were still eating meat off of a rabbit and a raccoon carcass. I spent all night in that hole wondering where they had gone and what they were doing. After they left, they ate a can of apricots, and then I sat there until I fell asleep. But I was awake when they all came back. I know that you want to hear all about what I did there the whole time I was with them, and I'm sure you think that you would find it awfully interesting. And I would tell you if there was anything to mention, and as unshaven as I was. Your grandmother accused me of being with another woman. And after hearing her say that, your father took her side and called me names that I didn't know he even knew yet. I slept on the back porch for more than a week, and when it rained, I slept under the porch. Eventually, your grandmother and I had a long podcast, probably over an hour. I don't know for sure yet. But there are 3 original stories, brand new stories that I've never done. And after that, I'm going to upload 2 or 3, 4 or 5 stories from the What If It's True channel to help complete the merger of the Dixie Cryptid channel and the What If It's True podcast. Over the next few weeks, I'll be dropping stories in that had originally been up on What If It's True. I've been through all this, but if anybody doesn't know, you think you've heard these before because you watched the other channel, then you'll know why. Thank you for joining the podcast. I really appreciate you. I think you're going to like this one. It's got some great stories in it. All right, here we go. Along the 4 corners of where the foundation would be poured. The immediate line of thought offered by the sheriff deputies was some kind of devil-worshipping cult sneaking onto the property at night to perform some silly ritual that they believed would grant them money or power or that kind of nonsense. But no one was able to explain how the steamrollers were cracked without any indication of an industrial tool being used. The most unsettling part of...
Last Sunday, folks, I ain't gonna sit out here and talk very long. I ain't got much to say. We'll say that, you know, I can kind of tell, you know, that I left. I guess it's pectoral. Maybe I guess that was a strain, man, because it's still feeling kind of like a little weaker than it should be off the rip. But the plan was to start off at 135, do a couple of sets, and go up and wait. A couple of sets, go up and wait. But I could tell from the get go it was that had that fatigue feeling in it. So I just went on 5 sets of 20 with that. Then I did some flies with the dumbbells, threw some curls in there, you know, just because I felt like it. That Sunday, yeah. Tomorrow's legs, I'll be in the secret location. See you back here Tuesday for some inclines and some rows, chest and back. Hopefully that'll, you know, since I ain't really working no upper body tomorrow, I'm gonna do a leg, man. That'll get out an extra day to kind of heal on up or whatever. But that's it, man. That's it. I'm gonna leave y'all with that. You know, enjoy the rest of your day. Take it easy.